Welcome to episode 3 of Champagne and Gratitude, where today we dive into Jamila's world of father complex coaching, aka daddy issues, and I'm ready to hear all about it.
But first, what are we celebrating and what are you grateful for?
Oh, today I'm celebrating actually having a fun day today. So
That's cute.
the last week has been a little bit wild. Just, I think a lot of stuff going on around me, work, friendships. Like it feels like there's a lot of busyness going on. So today I've got a clean slate, a fun day. So I'm really looking forward to that.
A bit of play.
A bit of play, yeah.
That's
It's
always
much needed. Feels like it's much needed.
Mm.
And then I'm grateful for, I think with all this kind of what feels like a little bit of chaos going on around me, I think I'm grateful for being able to see these events unfolding and really being able to take lessons from these things that are happening, even though they're not directly happening to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah.
It's almost like the universe is throwing it your way to for you to learn off other people right now.
Yeah. And not necessarily like negative things, but even, behaviors that I can see people doing that are really good and positive. I'm like, oh, that's great. Like I want to draw more of that, implement that into my life. And then, the behaviors that maybe are things that I'm like, oh, yeah, let's just step away from that and make sure we're not that person.
Not down that road. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah. What about you? What are you celebrating today and what are you grateful for?
What am I celebrating? I'm probably this week I'm really celebrating just showing up.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of an interesting near 2 weeks. And I think, just showing up today, showing up yesterday, showing up for my business, showing up for my partner. I'm just really proud that I've kept in somewhat a good routine over the last couple of weeks. And
is there something going on? I feel like there's so much strange stuff happening at the moment.
And it's like everyone you speak to, it's like, oh, I'm feeling really heavy or I've been really unwell.
Yeah.
Like some sort of life event that's quite heavy has happened to lots of different people that I know at the moment. So,
well, actually, a friend who we bumped into this morning on our walk, she summed it up well. She said, like,
what did she say again?
It feels like we're in that mid-year lull where you're ready for a holiday.
Yeah, it's like just come earlier.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
But we're still in the first quarter.
Not shutting down or anything.
Yeah. So, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for my community and the people around me. Like I said, this week's been very interesting and just having my mum has been amazing, just always like checking in and sending her love. And I guess for yourself as well, you've been a huge support just being there, just like always. Like, I mean, generally in life, just having, good, supportive people. So I'm really grateful for that.
I'll probably just distract you with average chat.
I know, but sometimes we need that. And our chat is not average. Just saying.
Oh.
Could be biased.
Anyway, so let's dive into father complex, daddy issues.
Let's do it. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. So many people that I've been talking to saying that this is what we're recording in this episode are just so pumped to hear all about it. And I think people have an idea of what father complex is or daddy issues, and it's quite like a niche idea. Like for me, my thoughts was that...
I was going to say, what's your view on father complex?
Yeah, so my issues father complex, hearing that term is the first time I've heard that with you, but daddy issues, I've heard that like a lot. But for me, daddy issues was where a female didn't grow up with, or maybe grew up with a father figure that wasn't stable or didn't have a father figure in her life, so then goes on to date an older man. And... yeah, that was just my idea. That's why I thought father complex, daddy issues, that's what it is.
I feel like that's a lot of people would think very similar along those lines, as well as like, oh, she probably sleeps with a lot of man, gets a lot of male attention, and she probably wants to feel loved by a man. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So I feel like it's very much on path to what people would be like, oh, you just love attracting older men so that they're like your dad.
Yeah.
Which sounds not great, hey?
So anyway, so can you give everyone a bit of an overview on, I guess, what father complex is and the span of it?
100%. So with father complex, it's pretty much where you have a complex relationship with your father. So whether it is from...
Right, the clue's in the name.
It's right there, guys. Catch on.
End of the episode.
Okay, done. Let's go. So it can be so many different things. It can be from quite severe to very mild, because all different relationships with our father, people that even have a great relationship with their father can have some form of father complex. So for me, I would explain it. It could be that it's a verbal abusive relationship. It can sometimes be physical. It could be that they weren't present in your life. It was maybe that you've not met your father. It may be that there's tension in the relationship, and it's always maybe there's, a dad holds a high standard for you, and the way he speaks to you and the way he treats you and his expectations can really put you into this having this father complex. But there are so many different things, from very minor to quite severe, that can cause father complex. It's just as far as you want to dive into it, right? It all starts with awareness.
Yeah, okay. And so then how would someone identify in themselves that maybe they have a father complex situation going on for them? Like, what would they be looking for? Like, you say having that awareness, but what does that actually look like?
Well, for me, for one, it's like when things aren't healthy in the relationship, where it's the obvious ones, like he's being verbally abusive, or he's being quite difficult, or it does come with the physical abuse.
And so this is with the partner, not the father?
This is with the father, sorry.
Oh,
so
okay,
if you have that relationship with your father, there's obviously, you're going to know if the relationship isn't great.
Yeah.
Some people might not. There might be a bit like, oh, I don't like how dad does that, or, it comes back to kind of seeing how you show up in the relationship and how you feel when you're in the presence of your father.
Yeah.
So it's like I say to people, it's as far as you want to take it. So if you feel like there's something not right, then I guarantee you, if you really do some reflecting and even some journaling, even if you want to write down like, okay, so how do I show up in this relationship? I feel a bit funny about it. So I'm just going to write a few things that don't align with me.
And again, that comes back to that gut feeling, hey? And our gut tells us so much. It's like our body's sending us those messages when we know something's not right. But often you get that feeling and something's off, but it's not until you actually identify what the thing is. You're like, that's what it was all along.
I guarantee you, like anyone moving through father complex will know that there's something not quite right. And it's just probably not knowing the correct scientific term rather than just daddy issues. And for so long in my life, it was like, oh, just daddy issues, like whatever.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't think about I think of it that much until I got to 21. I was like, hold on a second. There are some traits here that I don't really align with. Like there's something a bit off there. Where is that stemming from? And then for me, it all came with knowing that I had quite a toxic relationship with my father. But upon reflection, I did so much journaling. I'd pop notes down in my phone all the time. And then since from a young age, really, mum's always had me in therapy, whether it was art therapy or sand play. It was like this, when you were a kid, like this really healing.
Cool.
So I think for me, I always had the awareness, but for people that are unsure of whether or not they're moving through father complex and where it all starts, it's just really having the idea. And like you said, like you'll know. You naturally just know. And if it's something that you want to dive into, have a reflection on the relationship, take some time to go for a walk, journal, dot point some things down and see how you feel, see how it sits. And
notice how you feel in their company and...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that will, if there's like, if you're uncomfortable around your father, you feel like you can't say certain things, you have to be a different person, or even for me, it's like, how do you feel once you leave your father?
Yeah.
How are you showing up in your day after you spent a couple of hours with your father? Has it filled up your cup, or is it more so draining you? It's like any relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like when you
friendships, everything.
When you leave a friend, do you feel excited, like pumped up, motivated, ready to go? Or do you feel like, oh, that was a lot?
Yeah.
So it's really like any relationship. And I don't think it's something that needs to be over like investigated, or we have to look into this and I've got to do hard work to you'll know. You'll know. And I just think not to overthink. And if something that you're moving through, then you obviously seek for help.
And so so you identify that you have this issue, or you maybe someone, you know, is listening and they feel like, or they know quite obviously that they don't have a great relationship with their father. So in terms of how, like that, how does that actually affect them personally? Like how does that affect them in their life with, you know, their relationships, maybe with themselves or friends or a partner? Like why is this so important that they heal from this, or, you know, seek some guidance?
Yeah, it is so important if you do feel like father complex is showing up in your life to address it, whether it is talking to a therapist or myself or a friend. What for me that I've noticed with clients that have come through, it doesn't just show up in themselves and how they are every day, it shows up in their relationship.
Right.
So most likely people and clients that come through, they attract exactly their father figure.
Really?
So the person
Yeah.
that they are dating is almost not the splitting image, but personality-wise, the way they treat them or their habits is
Yeah.
because we gravitate to what we know, right? So for me, and the purpose behind Evolve and like why I'm doing this and creating toolkits and frameworks and courses is to help guide people to find the right person that's not their father, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So like, because your nervous system gets used to, I guess, a certain way of living, and if that's had been like a tumultuous relationship with your father, then that's what you're used to. Like that's what's comfortable for your nervous system. So to seek that in other relationships or friendships or whatever, it makes sense.
And I
But
think,
it's not right. Like we need to.
yeah, breaking the habit, breaking the pattern so that you're the one in the family dynamic that changes everything, essentially. So you might have brothers and sisters that will never break through the father complex, but be the one that makes a change. And obviously, most people moving through father complex will reflect on the relationship and be like, I don't want far out. Like, I don't want that in my life for my kids. Like, I don't want my kids to relive what I did.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important that, yeah, like we're moving through the complexity to change the relationship, your future relationship, for your future kids, for your future family. Do the work now. Like before getting into a relationship, work on the things that you find difficult, whether it's self-doubt, self-confidence, lack of love for yourself, or communication or boundary settings. Like I feel like we lack the things that we don't have with our father, then will show up in or any relationship with our family, like mother-father relationships really.
Yeah, and I know you touched on in the first episode about a little bit about your story, but for those who didn't hear that, like, do you want to go into a bit of detail around your story? And I guess the main thing for me that stood out in that episode was that you had, I guess you saw like a therapist or had different therapy, but there was still something where you didn't feel supported in this place. And, you know, and this is the whole point of you becoming a father complex coach. And, you know, so you can help so many people that like you needed it. But yeah, like maybe a bit of
a background.
Yeah.
So, gosh, it's like 28 years of up and down. So I'll stick to certain parts of my life, so I won't dive too much into it. But I think it started from a very young age, of the age of 3, and Dad was very much in and out of my life. And there was probably about 4 scenarios, like life-changing scenarios that happened for me that was pretty pivotal for my relationship with my father. I probably won't go into too much detail with that because it is probably something that is quite close to home for me. I'm more than happy to talk about a few things. And just while I'm on this topic as well, I want to make it really clear to the listeners as well, as I send my father a lot of love and a lot of kindness. We don't have a relationship at the moment, but I'm not on here to badmouth my father. I'm not here to say he wasn't good enough, or it was just, I speak the truth and I speak through my experiences to help other people change their lives, because it's really, it is really difficult.
Yeah.
And you come into this world expecting the father to father you. And then when it's the other way around, you know, that's something that you need to work on for the rest of your life, like overcoming. So I would definitely say very hot and cold, lots of lying, lots of like verbal abuse. And I think for me, it was just always at pivotal times in my life where it was like, you know, you'd hit puberty and then like your emotions are already high, and then your father comes in and calls you all these different names, and like, you're not showing up for me and you never call me and you're not good enough. And it's,
oh, wow.
So it was a very toxic, unhealthy relationship, in the sense that when I did sometimes spend time with him, when I got him on his good days, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's also what I'm juggling, and kind of what I said in the first podcast is you do battle, but he's blood, he's my dad. Like how can I not show up for my dad? And this is why I've created the framework and the courses that I have, is because so many people are like, well, it's dad, I just have to put up with it.
Yeah.
I just have to. No, you don't. You need to change that pattern so that you're not that father or you're not that mother that didn't show up for you, or it wasn't a good relationship. So,
and also I guess putting boundaries in place as well, so that, you know, they know how to act with you and how to respond to certain situations if, you know, if they're responsive to that.
Well, that's exactly right. Like my whole life, I never had the right tools for communicating to someone that was acting like a child, but yet is my father figure.
Yeah.
So there was lots of different times in my life. Like I think there was two really pivotal moments for me. There was like a scenario where he got very close to my face and said something like, I'm going to start punching you in the face. Like he was so angry.
Yeah.
He was so angry, and he was spitting on me, and he backed me into a corner, and I was like, this is my dad. This is my dad doing this to me. And my grandma, at one point, like, I think I've always suffocated my voice because I'm like, I have to be the good girl. I have to be polite. I have to not interrupt or show, put anyone else out. And then over the years, like all of this frustration and fiery, it's like in therapy, they'll call it, or how I call it, is like an iceberg that just keeps like slowly rising as everything like topples on, on you. And then all of a sudden we'd gone into the lounge room, and I ended up like, he was kind of like hovering over me, and I was sitting on the couch, and he was yelling at me, and my grandmother was standing next to him, like almost supporting him. Wow. And I got up off the chair, pardon my French, but I just have to say it. And I was like, fuck off, and like screamed. Like everything in me just like, I was like, who is this demon? Like, and that, hello, where have you been for the last and then my grandma actually stepped in front of him and put her hands back and said, sit down. Yeah. And then from that, I was actually in Montville at the time. And if anyone knows Montville, everything is so far away. Like to get to the fuel station, it's like a 20-minute drive, it feels like. Right, okay. So I had no car at this point. I was staying with dad and my grandma on the coast. So I just got my bags and I ran out the door. And as I left the door, as I walked out, he said, if you walk from this door, you are no longer my daughter.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I was like, well, see ya. And I didn't even flinch. Yeah. And it was like one of those things where with the relationship with my father, I was like, yeah, he means that, because we've been so up and down, and there'd be times where dad was in my life for 6 months, and then he wasn't in my life for 5 years, and then he was in my life for a year, and then he wasn't in my life for 6 years. So, but it was never, when he was in my life, it was never consistent. It was never a normal, I don't know what a normal father-daughter relationship is. I don't know what love from a father looks like, apart from when I see my grandparent, my granddad or my uncles. That's the only love that I see from males is when I was a young kid was from them. I don't even know what love looks like in a relation. Like my mum hasn't been with a partner, and I never saw mum and dad together. So that is also why it's fueled me with my coaching to help people make sure they attract the right partner and the right people in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that was a big struggle for me, and I definitely at a young age did not attract the right man.
Yeah. It's really amazing that you're sharing this and you've put this in place to, so people do have the tools to work through this, because I can see with your example, I didn't know the details of the story, and it's, it's a lot, and I can see why, if that's what you're growing up with and that becomes the norm, then I can see why you would be attracting that, in partners as well. And so to not do the work and not be able to identify this in yourself and have the tools to be like, okay, that's not right, but this is what I'm going to do to change it. Like it's crucial. Like it's literally life-changing.
It's literally life-changing, and you're one step away from doing it by making the right move, and whether that's picking up the phone and calling me, or a therapist, or even a friend, just to start off that conversation and be like, hey, like, I think I've had a really interesting relationship with my father. Can I talk to you about it?
Yeah.
And then it might even enlighten, like, hey, I think I really want to work on this because there's traits within me that don't align with me. And like when a big one for people that move through father complex, that get into relationships, they have a tendency of sabotaging the relationship in a way of like protecting themselves. So I guess for me, it's like, yeah, like just have the conversation. If you can see yourself doing some certain traits, it does stem from somewhere. And I think it's always good to get to the bottom of it. It's always like you're going to always win from it. Whether you actually, you can do what you want with the information, but you've got it in your pocket and you can keep it with you for the rest of your life.
And I find like it's really nice finding out, like discovering things about yourself and like learning. I'm so interested in like human behavior and learning why myself or other people might act in certain ways. And so, you know, if you think this may be a thing that you're going through, it's kind of nice to be like, okay, let's have a look at this and how is this affecting me? And if it is, like, what can I do to change that? Yeah.
And I think quickly on that, the other beautiful thing about learning and helping yourself is you can pass it on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this whole experience is for me. I was gifted whatever this relationship was with my father to be able to do what I'm doing right now and help so many other women that are moving through father complex make the change to live a better life and have a healthier relationship for their future kids and their future families. So
amazing. So if people want to come and work with you, your main demographic you're working with, you know, what do the sessions look like? How does that run?
So I'm working with women between the ages of 25 to 35. This is because when it all came up for me within those age brackets, and I feel like that's when you're transitioning into a serious relationship. You may be thinking of marriage or kids within this age bracket. So that's when I think you're fully ready to kind of put in the work. So if anyone's wanting to make change, I feel like that's that's when you're going to want to be doing it.
Yeah.
And so with our courses, I do a 10-week framework course that works with setting boundaries, also communication. Let's work on communicating with our father, also bringing back love into your life. So we do lots of things around finding, I guess, purpose for you again.
Yeah.
And then that's our 10-week course, but I do a 30-minute free contact call. So we can dive into all of the details.
Would you like large fries with that?
Just because the list would go on with what's actually going on in that 10-week program, but it is based off communication, boundary setting, and how to see yourself in a different way, essentially. And then we go into our 5-week framework, and then we've also got a 3-week framework course, or you can just do one-on-one. Wow. I'm gone. One-on-one sessions, one-off sessions if you want. Just to see if it aligns with you. But also within that free 30-minute contact call, you really get an understanding of how I work, what I actually do. And I also do the call to see whether or not I can be a help for you. So some clients I have said, unfortunately, with what you're moving through, I've got someone else in mind that I think would be amazing for you to work with. So it's kind of qualifying each other to see whether or not it's going to be a good fit. So rather than me diving into all the different frameworks, I would just, if you are interested and you are really wanting to dive in or just even know more about Father Complex, book in your 30-minute free contact call and I will give you all of the things that you need to know on Father Complex. Amazing. And we can make a decision from there.
Perfect. Is there anything else you want to add? It's so intriguing. I'm going to do my free 30-minute call.
I love that. Should we do it now?
Absolutely not.
We'll be here for a while. No, I'm joking. I just think I'd love to just, for anyone listening that feels like there's anything that doesn't sit right with them with the relationship with their father and they just want to have a conversation, I am that person that can just listen. And I can give you some guidance and some tools and you can make the decision on how far you want to take it because at the end of the day, it's in your hands.
I think there's so much value as well having a conversation with someone who's a neutral party. You know, they don't know potentially anything about your life and, you know, it's not a friend or a family member that may have a biased opinion. So, being able to have that neutral person to speak to, I think would be really valuable.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this to help other people because it is a massive thing that happened in your life, and yeah, it's huge, and yeah, you're going to help a lot of people. I'm very lucky.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe so too. I really do. And I'm really excited to keep passing on what I've learnt and from the studies and my own experience. So thanks.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, everyone, you know now about daddy issues, and we'll put the details down below as well. So if you want to reach out to Jamila and have your free 30-minute call.
Let's go.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.